and also Srimad Bhagavatam is also a like a travel book to see what is beyond the material world, what is the spiritual world. And yes, so what we hear here, there's Mahavishnu lying in the causal ocean. So the ocean of all the causes are stored in this ocean, and Mahavishnu is lying there and he's sleeping. So kind of sleeping. I think that's where Yoga Nidra comes from Mahavishnu. Yeah. So he's there and he's sleeping, and Sanat Kumar is coming to ask him questions. And so we hear how at the beginning, so there's Mahavishnu, and then like from his inhaling, no, he's exhaling, all these bubbles come from the pores of his body, and they're all universes. And he expands and he lies down in each of the universe. And then from that Vishnu form, a lotus flower sprouts from the navel, and in the lotus flower, the first living entity appears, and that is Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma, it took a while for him to become aware that he exists. And he became aware, oh, I exist. There must be some purpose. And he wanted to understand his purpose. And he went through long meditation and eventually understood, I'm supposed to create the universe. How do I do that? And then after another few moments, millions, trillions of years, Krishna appears and shakes the hand of Lord Brahma and says, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you how to create the universe. And he gives instructions to Lord Brahma how to create the universe. And also he gives Lord Brahma insight into the spiritual world. And that's the Brahma Samhita that we sing two verses at the beginning of the second half of the morning program. Govindam Adipurusham Tammaham Bhajami. So that's Lord Brahma gets an insight, and then he gets all the information. So here's all the material, and now this is how you create the universe. And Lord Brahma creates the universe, and he wants to populate. Is that the word? He wants to populate the universe so that all the planets, living entities should go and live. And I think at the beginning he was not so successful. Like his sons didn't want to have children. Like there were the four Kumaras. They didn't want to get married. They didn't want to have children. Narada Muni, he didn't want to marry and have children. And so we hear here in this at this time in Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear Sanat Kumar. He's the oldest of the four Kumaras. He's the son of Lord Brahma. And he's asking these questions to Sankarshan. And so eventually Lord Brahma was obviously successful, and the whole universe was inhabited and still is by living entities. So yeah, why am I sharing all this? This all just came to me as the context of where we are. And how everything is related, and how everyone seems to know each other, like throughout the universe, different planets. There's travel between the that's described here, and in Srila Prabhupada's purport, like some what came to my mind, my kids love Harry Potter, and Harry Potter, he can apparate and disapparate, I think is the word. So that's what the demigods and the yogis can do, and they use the Ganges. The Ganges is the explanation how they move from the different planets, and so here, yeah, that whenever Krishna or an exalted personality speaks, then other personalities from all over the universe, they want to come and listen. We have examples of Srila Prabhupada giving class and then sharing, oh, Lord Brahma was here, Narada Muni was here. So they came to hear Srila Prabhupada. And that seems to be something happening all the time, whenever there is a conversation, a dialogue, a meeting between pure devotees of Krishna, everyone just wants to be there. And so they travel, they dive into the Ganges that flows throughout the universe, and they arrive at the meeting with wet hair. So it's said, well, actually, I'm leading a reading group, a Srimad Bhagavatam reading group, since 3 years, every Wednesday morning in German. And there's like a core group of maybe 8 to 10. Well, how would I call them? Highly spiritual persons. Some of them, it's their first contact with Bhakti Yoga and Srila Prabhupada. And they just come to the reading group and they're deeply moved, often to tears. And we're in the second canto where it said, Srimad Bhagavatam is the answer to all the questions. And that's something that really intrigued me when I first heard it. I thought, how come there's like bookstores and libraries with millions of books, and I have these few books on my bookshelf, and they are the response to all the questions? Why do I go and buy other books? What are all these other books about? How can this be true? I was really curious. And as I continue to read and study, I'm growing my trust that yes, I think this is true. I think Srimad Bhagavatam really responds like to so many questions, like how come is the universe expanding? Like scientists can measure the planets are moving apart from each other. I think 60 miles per second or 70, some like there's an exact number. So the universe is expanding. How come? There's so much research about it, and Srimad Bhagavatam gives a simple response. Yes, Mahavishnu is exhaling. So that's why all the universes are going out. So the space between the planets is expanding and the universes. And then it will all go back again. And like recently I planted a special flower in my garden. I like to think it's Krishna's garden. That's the consciousness I'm training. So clary sage is a beautiful flower, and it has a healing potency. And I planted it for the healing potency, and also because it attracts a bee, a big black bee it's dark and it shimmers in all the rainbow colors. And I saw this bee in a friend's garden, like 100 kilometers away, like far away. And I saw this bee in her garden on this clary sage, and it reminded me of Shyam. I thought, oh, that's Shyam. That must be like, it's such a beautiful black color, which contains all the other colors. And I was at her house and I thought, I want this bee to come to me too. I want this bee in my garden. It's a very rare bee. And so that was 2 weeks ago. I said, I have the clary sage, but this bee just doesn't seem to know how to get to my home. There's no other clary sages in the area, so how can he come here? And 2 days ago, the bee came to my garden, to the clary sage. I have a video, and it's such a beautiful bee, and it reminds me of Shyam. It's black. And I thought, how can the bee know? How can the bee know? Like, it's so tiny, it's an animal, it has a lower consciousness. I mean, how can it know? And Srimad Bhagavatam has the answer. Do you know the answer? Paramatma. Oh, Paramatma. Paramatma. He's there. He knows. He knows where all the clary sages are. And maybe he heard my desire to have that bee in the garden. And so he directed the bee to the garden. And the bee is just fully surrendered to Paramatma. It doesn't have it's not using its free choice to create other so-called life purposes as we do. The bee just follows the direction. So a simple answer. Bhagavatam has all the answers. And I had another, and then there's the river Ganges. So my kids, they, I will share a lot of Srimad Bhagavatam with my kids, and they don't always appreciate. And actually, they're less and less skeptical because things happen that kind of opens their eyes or minds that maybe something is, valid about Srimad Bhagavatam. And I was telling them about the Ganges River many years ago. I was telling them, and it's a sacred river, and I've never been to the Ganges, yet I read about it. And King Parikshit sits at the river Ganges and hears Srimad Bhagavatam. And my daughter went to school and she came home and said, Mom, today we learned about the Ganges. And I was curious, what did you learn? And she said, it's really interesting, Mom. I think you will be interested too. Scientists have discovered a special algae in the river, in the water, and it only exists in the river Ganges. And that algae has the ability to purify the water really quick, like really fast. So the concentration of oxygen is very, very high. So even if the water appears muddy and dirty, it's clear, it's clean, it's pure. So my daughter was really like, scientists say it, and you said from Srimad Bhagavatam, so maybe. So Srimad Bhagavatam has the answers, and scientists are, proving some of these things. Yes. So um, I happen to be reading a lot of coincidences here. I happen to be reading in Canto 8 in my personal study of Srimad Bhagavatam. And in Canto 8, Krishna appears as Vamandev, as a dwarf. There's a big, big war between the demigods and the demons, and it seems to be happening all the time, from what I understand. There's a lot of mentioning of this war between the demons and the demigods. And there was at one stage of this battle, the demigods just all disappeared. They left their abodes and they disappeared. They went into some retreat. And Aditi, the mother of the demigods, was really sad. She was missing her children. And she wished to get another child. She actually wished to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead as her child. And her husband, Kashyapa Muni, was very wise and very helpful. And he said, well, do this and this sacrifice for this and this time, and then you will get to meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she did this, I think it was a 1 week sacrifice, although I don't know how long that week is for us in our time measure. Anyway, she did this sacrifice, and then the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared, and offered her a blessing, and she, yeah, please become my son. And so he agreed, and said, I'll be your son. God telling Aditi, I will be your son. And then she gets pregnant, and the Lord appears as Vamandev. And Vamandev, he at a very young age, he goes to a big sacrifice held by Bali Maharaj, by King Bali. And as he arrives, King Bali offers him, he says, you can ask a gift from me, anything you want, I will give it to you. And Vamandev says, yes, I'd like three paces of your land. And Bali Maharaj agrees. Well, there's a whole thing around it, but this is the short. He agrees and says, okay. And Vamandev, and he thinks, like, it's a dwarf. It's, I think, the size of a 5-year-old child. So 3 paces of land is nothing. I mean, he can have it. He was ready to giving him a whole kingdom or an island or whatever. And he just wanted 3 paces of land. And then he agreed, and Vamandev, he took 1 step. And while he was taking the first step, he grew. And his step covered the whole planet Earth. And then he took a second step. And with the second step, he grew, and he covered the whole universe. And actually, he his step was so big that with his toe he cut the covering of the universe, and the covering of the universe is what protects us from the causal ocean, from the water. And so as he took the second step, and I'm just reading that, I'm just a few verses before this, he cuts the layers, and the layers of the universe, the coverings are incredibly thick, I would say. 10 layers, and each is just 10 times as thick as the layer before. So with his toenail he cuts, and the Ganges, and that's what becomes the Ganges. So the Ganges is actually the causal ocean, the ocean where Mahavishnu lies, the ocean that, well, I understand the causal ocean is the ocean of all the causes, everything is contained in that water, and that's what becomes the Ganges. And how come? I mean, how there's a place in the Himalayas, and there's the Ganges comes. There's a, as I said, I've never been there, but there's the source of the Ganges that we see, and it's in the Himalayas, and then it goes through India. How can it be that? How can the causal? It comes from inside Earth, but the causal ocean is outside of Earth. How does this work? And so there's a place in the fifth canto. Yes, we have time, that I would like to read. And it describes how the causal ocean enters into the universe, and the path it takes until it becomes the Ganges that we can actually see and touch and bathe in if we travel there. So it's from the fifth canto, and it's Shukadev Goswami speaking to King Parikshit. And it's the canto where the universe is described, like the structure of the universe, the higher planets, the lower planets, and the middle planets, where planet Earth is situated on a like on a platform. Well, that's in my words how I see it. It's like a platform where different planets circumambulate, and the sun, and they all move around, and that's called Jambudvipa. So there's fascinating descriptions. And here Shukadev Goswami says, "My dear king, Lord Vishnu, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, appeared as Vaman Dev in the sacrificial arena of Bali Maharaj. Then he extended his left foot to the end of the universe and pierced a hole in its covering with the nail of his big toe. Through the hole, the pure water of the causal ocean entered this universe as the Ganges River. Having washed the lotus feet of the Lord, which are covered with reddish powder, the water of the Ganges acquires a very beautiful pink color. Every living being can immediately purify his mind of material contamination by touching the transcendental water of the Ganges. Yet its waters remain ever pure. Because the Ganges directly touches the lotus feet of the Lord before descending within this universe, she is known as Vishnupadi. Later she receives other names like Janavi and Bhagirati. After 1,000 millenniums, the water of the Ganges descended on Dhruva Loka, the topmost planet in this universe. Therefore, all learned sages and scholars proclaim Dhruva Loka to be Vishnupada, situated on Lord Vishnu's lotus feet." So reading that, it seems the water of the causal ocean to run through all the layers of the universe, it took 1,000 millenniums. And then the water came to the highest planet in the universe, which is Dhruva Loka. Dhruva Maharaj, who we can also read about in Srimad Bhagavatam, Dhruva Maharaj, the famous son of Maharaj Uttanapada, is known as the most exalted devotee of the Supreme Lord because of his firm determination in executing devotional service. Knowing that the sacred Ganges water washes the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Dhruva Maharaj, situated on his own planet to this very day, accepts the water on his head with great devotion. Because he constantly thinks of Krishna very devoutly within the core of his heart, he is overcome with ecstatic anxiety. Tears flow from his half-opened eyes, and eruptions appear on his entire body. So the water flows over the head of Dhruva Maharaj, an exalted devotee. And then the 7 sages reside on planets beneath Dhruvaloka. Well aware of the influence of the water of the Ganges, to this day they keep Ganges water on the tufts of hair on their heads. They have concluded that this is the ultimate wealth, the perfection of all austerities, and the best means of prosecuting transcendental life. Having obtained uninterrupted devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they neglect all other beneficial processes like religion, economic development, sense gratification, and even merging into the Supreme. Just as Gyanis think that merging into the existence of the Lord is the highest truth, these 7 exalted personalities accept devotional service as the perfection of life. And one more verse. After purifying the 7 planets near Dhruvaloka, at the pole star, the Ganges water is carried through the spaceways of the demigods in billions of celestial airplanes. That's so far out. So how can the water flow from one planet to the next? Well, it doesn't flow. It's carried by airplanes by the demigods. That's maybe some job to get to fly an airplane that carries the Ganges water. Then it inundates the moon, Chandraloka, and finally reaches Lord Brahma's abode atop Mount Meru. On top of Mount Meru, the Ganges divides into 4 branches, each of which gushes in a different direction, east, west, north, and south. These branches, known by the names Sita, Alakananda, Chakshu, and Bhadra, flow down to the ocean. So that's still outside, that's the ocean that surrounds Jambudvipa. And then it's described how it eventually, one of these branches goes to the Himalaya, and that's how we see it appear as a source. We see it appear, and it becomes the Ganges. So it's sacred water coming directly from Lord Vishnu, where he is lying. And Srila Prabhupada describes in one of the purports that the Ganges, it washes away all the sins. So anyone who bathes in the Ganges, all the sins are washed away. And then when people continue their same habits and same sinful activities, they will just be covered again. I was actually reminded of the advanced seminar when I read that. Like, everyone comes out of the advanced seminar like purified, like so shining and alive, and then people go home to their life and to the old habits. If the habits aren't changed, then the consciousness will just get covered again. Not completely yet. Yet there's covering happens again with the same habits. And yeah, so I was coming to the end of my contemplation this morning about this verse and all that came to me. I landed with Srila Prabhupada. So Srimad Bhagavatam is described as the essence of all the Vedas, and still it's like, well, with this version it's 32 volumes, the essence, so it's quite a bit of reading to do. And what does Srila Prabhupada do? And I thought, wow, Srila Prabhupada seems to just like boil it down even more to very, very simple instructions for us to practically apply in our life, how we can purify our heart, like what will fulfill our heart. The question of the sages, what will fulfill the hearts of the living entities to come. And Srila Prabhupada just gives us a program which is so simple. It just like it comes down to purifying inside and outside. How do we purify inside? It's by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's how we purify our heart. And then he gives us 4 regulative principles, which essentially we can look at them as don't do this, don't eat meat, don't have illicit sex, don't intoxicate, and don't gamble. That's like the external. And yet internally, what's the message or what is the essence? It's like protect the four qualities of righteousness. Protect the 4 qualities that support us to live our dharma, to live our purpose. And that's the quality of compassion, the quality of cleanliness, the quality of truthfulness. That's why like gambling will lead us away from truthfulness. And then austerity, which I didn't really understand as a quality. And in a conversation with my husband over lunch, we were like, what is austerity? That's no intoxication. So it's kind of and I don't know the word in English. So austerity is to remain to remain clear in consciousness, to not do anything. Atmarama, that's what we came to. Austerity is about Atmarama. It's about finding the joy inside our heart, in our relationship with Krishna, and not going out to look for it in something else or someone else. So not go and try to fix the hole in my heart by some substance or by numbing, numb the pain. And so that's what I understand is what Srila Prabhupada gives us in essence. And that's like the pearl of Srimad Bhagavatam, like the 4 regulative principles. We can read about them at the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a reason. It's related to King Parikshit again, like King Parikshit, who met the personality Kali Yuga, and wanted to kill him. And Kali begged, "Please, can you give me a place to live? Can I stay somewhere?" And King Parikshit said, "Yes, there's places where you can stay." And okay, I didn't research this, so I'm just speaking from my memory, and maybe I need some help. You can go and take shelter in slaughterhouses. You can take shelter in gold, I think it is. You can take shelter in brothels, I think is the word. And you can take shelter in, there's another place, I don't know that place. But it's the places where these activities happen, which when we engage in them, we cover up our compassion. We cover up our truthfulness. We cover up our purity and our austerity. I was over lunch. We were discussing about my class, and we spoke about compassion. How does eating meat? How does that cover compassion? And it's something I've been observing in children. Actually, my nieces and nephews. I have 6 of them, and so I knew them from when they were born. And I could tell with each of them, I could tell when the parents started to give them meat. And I would ask to verify. I would ask, have you started giving them meat? Yes. And it's just, for me, there was such a drastic change in the like this innocent baby energy. And it would change. And I'm actually currently in a conversation with my sister because her son is very aggressive. And I'd shared with her my observation that I experienced him as becoming aggressive at the moment you started to give him meat. And she agreed. And so, yeah, that's like eating meat. It's not the meat eating, it's the violence that is related, that is required for the meat to land on the plate. There's so much violence involved. And in order to bear the violence, we need to close our heart. Otherwise, we cannot eat, we cannot bear it. That's my conclusion. Yeah. So, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I will end here. And yeah, I welcome your comments and questions and realizations and corrections and disagreements and whatever.
Sure.
Valerie.
Thank you so much for class. I got so much from that. Thank you, Anandini. Can you hear me?
It's a little low, but I can hear. Yeah, if you come closer, that's better. Then I can also see you.
One thing I was connecting with in your class, and something that I have been connecting with, is that this story of Brahma and the story of all these different great personalities. It feels like my origin story. And being in the States, I'm not connected to my heritage at all. I don't know like where I come from, and I've experienced grief around that. And I was actually talking to a friend yesterday about ancestry, and it was pretty confusing. We were like, what is ancestry really, if we're like always switching the body, and like then we're connected to different genes and DNA, and like it's just kind of confusing. But connecting to the story of the Vedas, it's like this feels like true ancestry. This is actually where I'm from in every body that I experience. So that just helps me. It brings like a sacredness to it when I connect to these stories in that way. And then another thing that was coming up for me, I loved what you were sharing about the Ganges. It was really inspiring and like really far out. The Ganges like being carried by airplanes, and I'm really curious to learn more about that, like how the Ganges travels through the different planets and the layers and stuff. I'm really interested. But Azay and I have been planning a road trip this fall to go to California to visit my family, and then Azay can meet a lot of my family and my friends along the way. And it's felt like really important to me. Like I just sense that it'll bring some healing and integration to me. And as I was sitting in this class, I was just like, wow, what's really important actually? Like it almost felt like that trip didn't mean anything anymore. Like that trip has felt so important to me recently. But then in this class, it was like, actually, that doesn't really matter. What matters is that I go to India and I bathe in the Ganges. That's actually what feels important. And so, yeah, I feel really inspired. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie, for sharing. Yeah, yeah, wow, yeah. This is the history of our ancestors. I like that connection, and then it becomes so, yeah, universal and meaningful. Like sometimes I would hear, yeah, we're all brothers and sisters, and it's kind of used in a like a, I say, superficial way. And yet when you're sharing, and oh no, yeah, we really are brothers and sisters, like throughout the universe, we all go back to one father, and that's our ancestry. Yeah. Yeah. And also I'm getting that, like sitting here in class, you connected with, like with essence, what's essentially important for you. And yeah, visiting family is important. And yet, I know for myself, I'm about to leave to England with my parents, and it's like, yeah, oh, I can make a big thing out of it. How will I handle this? How will I handle this? And oh no, should I go at all? No, I better stay at home. And then to just put it into perspective, well, it's not that important. It is important. And yet, what it's important is to purify our heart and hear about Ganges. It's in the fifth canto that you can read about it. It's very fascinating. Yeah, that's what's important. And maybe, yeah, maybe go and swim in the Ganges or put our hands in the Ganges one day.
Something else I'm connecting with too is I was in a class the other day at the temple, and the Swami was talking about how hearing about Krishna is actually more important than seeing Krishna. And he was connecting to that. He like put his hand around his ear, and it makes the shape of a half a heart. So you like put them together and it's the heart. And then
Oh,
in the word heart, the word ear is in the word heart. And so I was just like, wow, I've like never thought about these things before, just how connected the ear is to the heart. And that's what I'm experiencing in this class. Like just hearing about the Ganges, I'm connected to essence and it's opening my heart. So
Mm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. Two ears and it forms a heart. It's also described in Srimad Bhagavatam how when the embryo develops, the first sense that is like activated is the hearing sense. And it's the last sense to go, which is really fortunate, so we can hear the Maha Mantra until the end. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, I'm much appreciating the conversation. Yeah, I like the term you used, Valley. It's it's an origin story. And so, and everyone's interested in origins. Where did I come from? Or who's the grandfather of my grandfather? It's just like it's very natural for a spiritual being in a human experience, developed intelligence, origin story. And now here in this verses and this whole section of Bhagavatam and other sections like Canto 2, Canto 5, it's so much about origins. And I was reminded, this was about a few days ago, and I was on the internet checking news, and there was a section, science news. And it said like the astrophysicists reject the Big Bang theory because like for like 100 years it's the Big Bang. That's the art. We all come from a big explosion of nothing. That makes sense, sure. And so yeah. So but now they reject. So I clicked on it, and it was like really interesting and related to your class and the origin story. So yeah, so they said like now based on the evidence, based on their evidence, it's not like a Big Bang that started everything. That what they were calling the Big Bang is it's the language they used. And, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but they used the word. It's one pulse in 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 an ongoing series of breaths, inhalations and exhalations.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, really amazing. Because like you say, okay, the Big Bang, and in one sense, even the Big Bang Theory, that sort of thing. I mean, that has parallels with the story of origins from the Bhagavatam, like but the idea of okay, so there's like this Vishnu who breathes in and out. That's obviously just mythology. Now, though, they're going from it wasn't just like this bang. It's inhalations and exhalations. It's a series of breaths. So, as part of your class emphasized, yeah, that in so many fields, more and more the modern science, they're coming to the Vedic conclusions. They're coming to the Vedic conclusions. You mentioned about regulative principles, and it's not essentially about don't do that, although it can manifest that way. It's about qualities: austerity, cleanliness, truthfulness, compassion. You talked about the meat eating. So even if we look at that one, because the guy talked about astrophysics and like that. But even if we look at, okay, let's say modern science, modern nutrition, say in the 1950s, what they would say about like a vegetarian diet, Western medicine and like that. And basically he would have like, no, it would just be some lunatic fringe nuts who think you could be healthy on a vegetarian diet. Science says you need meat. So, okay. So now, of course, as the decades go on more and more, oh, actually vegetarian diet, if it's properly balanced and you get the protein, this is actually healthy, and it's healthier than a meat than an animal-based diet. So I'm just giving that one example, two or three examples where the modern empirical material science is coming to the conclusion of the ancient Vedas, which supposedly were just very primitive. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing that. Actually, yeah, I'm reminded of um uh, oh a research that was done by a Swiss supermarket. So it's not very scientific, and still it's like a supermarket. They did some customer research, and they asked parents, what are you most afraid for your children to get into? Like, what do you want to protect your children from? And the responses that came first was they're scared their kids will take drugs. They are scared that their kids will get into some weird sexual whatevers, and they're scared that their kids will have trouble with money.
Yeah.
So it's like just ordinary human beings in Switzerland, parents, that's what they're scared for their children.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, if we're like, okay, like if we know in the, you know, members here have been in different parts of Software courses, and so like, you know, when it comes out, like what people's shame is around, it's a lot around sexual stuff, it's a lot around torturing animals, it's a lot of around I stole money here and there. It's around those, because the regulative principles, yeah, they're so much not about thou shalt not and thou should feel shame. It is about like providing basic dharmic guardrails, because like, yeah, so we all spiritual beings in conditioned life, we have a propensity to do all those things, for intoxication and have sex here and there, and to put on layers of illusion through you know, different drugs, and to eat, to kill animals just to satisfy our taste buds, and to just like, yeah, just, oh, if I just put a $200 on the roulette wheel, I won't have to work for the rest of my life. Okay, so then, and it's like, it's just like this, it's very low quality. It's all about low quality. So the regulative principles are so that in earning a living, we're honest, and we don't give power to greed, and in fulfilling the basic desires, we're doing it in a way where we're not unnecessarily disturbed, and we're facilitated to gradually make advancement towards that Atmarama quality. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's a protection, guidelines to give protection.
Protection.
And yeah, like, I mean, I have understanding, I have empathy for people who go to intoxication. Like, sometimes existence is so painful and there's such a strong desire for relief. So if there's no knowledge that while intoxication is not really the solution, then yeah, why not take it if it helps? So it's also like I see like a cry behind these activities. There's a suffering, and so Srila Prabhupada is giving guidelines and protection, and offering a place to go when the suffering is, where the suffering can be relieved eternally. Any other questions or comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna. I wanted to ask a clarifying question. When you were talking about the pathway of the Ganges, you mentioned the topmost planet being Dhruva Loka. I always thought that was Brahma Loka was the topmost planet. And then you said it goes to 7 sages, and then at some point it lands at the residence of Brahma. Can you help me understand that sequence? Like, what is this Dhruva Loka? And then is it above Brahma Loka, or is Brahma Loka below? Like, it's contrasting with my previous understanding of like the sequence of planets.
Thank you, Eze, for these questions. I read these verses from the 5th canto, and I don't have a response for you, and I hope dear Govinda has.
Hare Krishna. Vedic astronomy, fascinating topic. My study, I studied a little astronomy in university way back 45 years ago. Vedic astronomy includes what's valid about Western astronomy and transcends it. So nice question, intelligent question. And I don't, I don't have in front of me the exact passage that Anandini was referring to. At the same time, Dhruva topmost planet and Brahmaloka's topmost planet, that language makes sense both ways. So let's call it within the material systems of planetary systems, 14 planetary systems, and the topmost is Satyaloka or Brahmaloka. Then Dhruva, it's kind of a different category. So it's like a different dimension of analysis. Dhruva, it's a Vaikuntha planet within the material universe. So it can be said it is above Brahmaloka because it's a spiritual planet within the material universe. Now, when we hear Brahmaloka as the topmost planet, it means like we're talking about the material planetary systems. That's how they're both true.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, dear Govinda.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mentioned Narada Muni along with the four Kumaras. Are they brothers? Like, he shows up and he pops in and out of all the stories, and I'm wondering about his origin.
Narada Muni, is he the brother of the four Kumaras?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's my understanding. Lord Brahma is their father.
Okay.
Yeah, they're brothers, and just like you said, Anandini. So Lord Brahma he was frustrated because a big part of his service is to populate the universe. And so some of his early offspring, Narada Muni and the Kumaras, is like, okay, yeah, so get married and have like, hundreds and thousands of children. And they're like, nah, we're not into it. We're just later he did have children like Daksha, who did populate the Prajapatis, and that's all described in the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam's the answer to all questions. So Narada Muni and the Kumaras, the Lord Brahma is the father of both, and they both have the similarity that all five of them, they were into leading this celibate life and full devotion to Krishna consciousness without doing the grahastha and children thing. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you for this question. It brings to mind something that I was, contemplating on, because we hear about the previous lives of Narada Muni. We can read about his previous life in Srimad Bhagavatam, how he was like the son of a maidservant, and he heard, or he ate leftovers of prasadam, and like his mother died also from a snake bite.
Mm-hmm.
And then he left the place and went on a pilgrimage, and in his next life he became Narada Muni. And I was contemplating on that because it must mean that Narada Muni in his previous life existed in a different universe, because he was the son of Brahma, who was the first living entity in this universe. So it's not possible that Narada Muni in previous life was in this universe. So I don't know if my logic makes sense, but that's something I was contemplating on.
It makes sense. It makes sense. Of course, we can get into, perhaps he existed in a previous day of Brahma, because when we get into origin stories and creation, there's the very beginning of the universe, which is there. There's Brahma sprouted from the Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Then there's also there's the origin of each day of the universe has its own origin. At the same time, it's logical. It's highly possible that, and it's the Bhagavatam describes sometimes there's apparent contradictions, and Shukadeva Goswami and Sutadev Goswami says, well, we're talking about different universal creations, different universal manifestations. So what you're saying does make sense to me, and that, well, all 18,000 verses of the Bhagavatam are fully transcendental, and that section is particularly, Prabhupada references a lot, chapters 4 to 7 of the first canto. It's about the Narada Muni's recounting his own history to Srila Vyasadeva, and it goes back even further, because before he was the boy of the maidservant, he was a beautiful Gandharva, which is a type of demigod that's particularly known for beautiful singing. He was a Gandharva, and he got a little carried away with himself, and he was compassionately cursed by Narada Muni. Then he became the boy of the maidservant. So it's fascinating.
Wait, did you say that Narada Muni in a past life was a Gandharva and then a different Narada Muni cursed him?
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. Thanks for pointing. No, Narada Muni in a past life was a Gandharva, and it was a different sage.
Okay.
A different sage passing through the heavenly kingdom.
Okay.
That cursed him. It wasn't Narada Muni that cursed him. I was confusing. Narada Muni cursed Nalakuvara and Manigriva, who became he cursed them in the heavenly planets, and they became the trees in Nanda Maharaja's courtyard. Thanks for that correction.
To address the apparent contradictions, I've been operating under the assumption that our lives aren't following a timeline like we would consider time to be like a line. And my thought is that I don't know if this is true, right? It's just an assumption that we have the experience that we need, and it's not consecutive time. We could pop in the future or the past or whatever. It doesn't. I don't know.
I'm not understanding.
Mm.
Do you repeat?
So for Narada Muni, right? Like there's the assumption of a timeline of like he was born of Brahma, so that's in the beginning, and that if that's a second birth for him, then how is it possible that he was first the son of a maidservant? And my point is that as we experience our different lifetimes, that they don't have to follow the consecutive time path. That that could be his, one of his first lives, and then he was born earlier in the timeline. I don't know if I'm explaining it well.
Well, I'm not sure how clear I am, but for sure, it's definitely described. Srimad Bhagavatam is the Mahapuran. Purana means a history, and so it's described that it's not chronological.
Mhm.
And so it's like, we're used to historical studies. In 1776 this happened, in 1812 that happened, like that. And so Bhagavatam has some of that, but it's deliberately not. It's like, okay, we're giving different highlights from universal history and even meta-universal history. We're giving different highlights that are designed to support us in bhakti. And so it's not like, well, what happened then? And there's some of that there which we can piece together, but the essence, here's history of Narada Muni, here's history of Ajamil, here's history of Bhagirath, who had a role to play in bringing down the Ganges. Here's history of Lord Shiva. And histories are chosen and given by Shukadev Goswami and Suj Goswami, particularly to support us in our process of bhakti, And relatedly, there's definitely time travel in the Vedas. There's many instances of time travel and time relativity, going backwards in time, going forwards in time. So that's all there in fascinating pastimes.
And then I guess a more pointed question I was trying to get at is, to have a human body, we have lived, hundreds of thousands of lives. Are they not chronological? It makes sense that they wouldn't be chronological necessarily, that there isn't a necessity for them to be chronological.
I'm not quite understanding.
So for example, it's possible that I had a life as a lizard, 5,000 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And then, 2,000 years in the future, as I know it, maybe I was something else. And then I popped it in and out of timelines for my lives.
2,000 years in the future, future from 5,000 years ago, meaning 3,000 years?
No, like 2,000 years from now, as we know it.
Time and space are all relative. So yeah, Srila Prabhupada, he would often compliment Einstein, because Einstein, came to the time relativity. So Prabhupada said he basically got it right. Interestingly, again, those primitive people in the Beta Gauge were discussing about time relativity and past, present, future. Thanks for that.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So what I'm understanding, you're saying that something that happens in the future might be your past.
Yes. Yes.
That's interesting. Thank you. I will contemplate on that. I'll read the verse again. The sages came from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges, and therefore their hair on their heads was wet. They touched the lotus feet of the Lord, which are worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of the Serpent King when they desire good husbands. So this last sentence I didn't go into. It could fill a whole class too. An interesting topic.
Yes.
Thank you all. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Anandini. Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
Bol.
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. Hari Bol.